Welcome to our fourth lesson on using SketchUp and how to use SketchUp. Today I'll show you how to make a pirate playhouse that's going to look something like this. So there's a lot going on here, but I'll show you how to get through all that. Two things to keep in mind during this. Number one, there are timestamps in the description box that can take you to different parts of the video. So if you need to look back or you want to jump to certain parts of the lesson, such as how to make a particular shape or figure, that will help you get to those points. That's the same for the previous videos if you didn't get to see those before. The second thing to keep in mind is that this is a pretty involved model. So I'm going to break this into two parts, and I will tell you when I suggest, if you do need a break, when I would recommend you take a break. And I'll also put that as a timestamp in the description box. But let's go ahead, let's look at what it is we're going to try to accomplish today. Here we go. As usual, applying all the just about all the basic 2D and 3D construction and design tools. Creating and adding components to a model. We got to see that a little bit in the last two lessons, but we'll get to see that again in maybe a little bit more detail. Use an additional feature of the move tool to make lofts. So not just making straight up or down or left or right extrusions, but something like this slanted shape here. In other programs that would be called a loft, but here they call it something else, and we use the move tool for that. Scaling figures, also rotating, moving, as we have done before, and adding materials, and also making fillets, those curves similar to right here. There is no fillet tool, so I did find a way to easily make fillets like that in SketchUp. So let's get right into it. So if you open SketchUp, you should get to this point. And we'll create a new simple template, feet and inches. And then we have to let it load. Okay. The last thing to keep in mind before we get going is remember that I am using a Windows computer right now. You might be using a Mac or a Chromebook. There can be some differences on those computers. Look at the bottom right where my mouse is. If I'm referring to different keystrokes, very likely it will specify at the bottom for you the keystrokes you should be using. So if I'm saying use the control key, you might have to use the command key instead, for example, on a Mac. I'll tell you to look to the bottom if that's the case. So let's get going. Now, before that, let's look at this. You can see the view is a little bit different here. I'll actually show you the original file too. Looks a little bit nicer. You got green grass and like a sky. Here it's a little bit boring. So I'll show you how to change that. Let's first delete this person. And if you go over to the right and click on styles, you let it load, and it's under default styles. If you click there and you click on simple style, and then you wait for it to do its thing, you will get that background, so it looks a little bit more interesting. And that's really cool if you get to be making architectural designs and buildings and styles and stuff like that. It's much nicer than the gray background than you had before. Of course, you don't have to do this, but I don't know, it makes it look a lot nicer. So once you do that, if you are doing that, you can click on the X, exit from that. And the last thing to keep in mind is that if you need help with the tools and what they do, you can click on this instructor tab here, and this will tell you the uses of all the tools as you go through. using the different tools. So use that to your advantage as well. But let's go ahead and start to make the hull, which is pretty much the biggest portion of this, ignoring all these smaller parts like the windows and the wheel and the flag and all that. So we're gonna start with the rectangle tool. We'll click on the origin. There you go, you can see I'm making a rectangle here. The dimensions for this will be 8 feet, 8 apostrophe, comma, 6 feet, 6 apostrophe. So just like I have down in the bottom right corner, and then you click enter. So there's your rectangle. Then make a line starting from the midpoint right here, going out to the right, and you can see the line is red right now because it's parallel to the red axis. We'll make that 4 feet, 4 apostrophe. Then pretty simple, connect from that point over to this vertex of the rectangle, and same thing on this side. Just like that. Then erase, let's click on the erase tool and erase these lines. Cool, now that is just about the top view of this hull, the hull of the ship. Now you can notice here as well, there are fillets, there are curves, rounded edges around these corners. So in other programs like AutoCAD and Inventor, there is a fillet tool, but in the free SketchUp, there is not. So here is how I think is an easy way to go about making fillets. So we click on the line tool, click on the corner that you're going to be making around, and then specify a distance that will be the radius of the curve that you're making. So let's say we want the radius of the rounded corner to be 9 inches. So I'm making a line, I clicked on that corner, I'm going out to the left, 9, I'm typing in 9, you can see that in the bottom right corner. 9, enter. And you probably can't see the line, I can't see the line. So I'm gonna click on the select tool, selecting that line. You can see now it turned blue. So that line is there. It's just overlapping with the longer one. So once you do that, go over to the arc tool. Keep in mind you have 4 different kinds of arcs. We're going to click on the 2-point arc. Click on this end point of the line that we just made. So that's point number 1. Then point number 2 is going to be on this intersecting edge over here. Where's it going to go? Well, if you move, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and you'll see it. When it becomes magenta, that's where you want to click. And you can see in the box there, it says tangent at vertex. That means this arc is going to be tangent to both of the edges. And that's exactly what a fillet is. It's a curve that's tangent to 2 edges. So I'll click there, and then click again because you have to specify a radius. And this is the correct radius or the correct curvature. So I'll click again, and it didn't come back. So I'll try it again, and that happens. So 2-point arc, it's already selected. First point, go over to the other edge, move until it's magenta. There it is, it says tangent at vertex. Now I didn't like it when I clicked right on the point, so I'm gonna move this again until it's magenta. There we go, tangent at vertex, click. There, that's better. Then we will erase any of these other lines. That I find to be a pretty straightforward way of making a rounded edge. Let's do the same thing, got some practice, we'll do it on the other side. So I'm orbiting around There we go. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So first, line tool, get to that corner. You can go in either direction. Go in one of the directions along the edge. Let's do the same thing, 9 inches. Just 9, enter. And then click on your 2-point arc. And just to visualize this, I'm going to click on select and then the line. You can see it right there. Anyway, back to 2-point arc. Endpoint of that line that you made. And go over to the opposite edge and move until it's magenta. There it is. Click, and then move your mouse around until it is magenta again. Come on, there it is. Click. So there's your round, your fillet, and we'll use the erase tool to get rid of the other lines. There, so that is the top view outline of the hull. Good. Now from here, it's pretty much all extrusions using the push-pull tool. So click that push-pull, clicking here, there we go. Push-pull, and we're going to extrude this a total of 1 foot 6 inches, just like you see in the bottom right corner, 1'6", and enter. Then, well, you can see here that part that we just extruded, that's that's right along where my mouse is moving right now. So that's raised a bit. So let's move that upward. Well, if I click on move, I try to click on one of the spots, it's only going to move one of the faces. That's not what we want. Keep in mind that if you want to select an entire object, you can use the select tool and triple click on one of the faces. 1, 2, 3. Now everything is selected. Then we can use the move tool. There it is. I'm going to click right where the origin is and then move upward. You can see once I stop moving, it says on blue axis. That's how I know I'm moving upward. I'm going to move that up 3 feet, 3', enter. Good stuff. Now we actually get to try that loft feature it has a different name here, but where we get to make a slanted extrusion. So I'll show you how to do that here. We're going to make, first to do this, make an offset. That's over with the push-pull button. There it is, it's that bottom one, offset. We click in that region so we can tell it which region to offset. And we'll offset this a total of 6 inches. 6, enter. And then to make this loft, you click on the move tool for this. So if you click on this region, well, it moves away like you would expect. But there's options down at the bottom. Pick 2 points to move, yeah. Control to copy, we've done that before. So if you want to copy it, you can click Control. Might be different for you, so keep that in mind. Click Control and come on. There we go, now it's copying instead. I'm going to click Control again just to go back to it. Then this next option, Alt equals toggle auto fold. So instead of loft in SketchUp, it's called auto fold. So I'm going to click Alt, and there, now you see that, oh, it's not behaving super well. There, now you get to see that feature. Now we're going to move this down, and I know I'm moving it down because it says on blue axis. We're going to move that down 3 feet. 3', enter. There. Good. Good, pretty cool. now let's go ahead and make the top portion where we have the dip downward and this cabin right here. So let's offset again. There's offset. Click on the inner region. And we will offset this inward 3 inches. 3, enter. And then to split between the cabin and, I don't know ship terminology, this lower deck floor, we'll make a line. And I'm going to go between, I'm going to use the midpoint of these 2 lines, move along over to the other midpoint, there it is, and click, just to split these 2 sides up. Then we can use push-pull, this one, to extrude upward and downward. In a sense, using the push-pull tool allows you to subtract volume as well. So I'm going to push downward, and we'll go downward a total of 1 foot. 1 apostrophe, enter. Then for the cabin, we're going to extrude this rectangular region upward. But before we do that, have a look here. If you see under where the cabin is, there's a line going across. What that's telling me is that this cabin and the rectangular solid right below, they're 2 separate solids. So to make it a new solid and not a continuation like you see here, you can click, well, let's have a look at down below. It says Control to toggle create new starting face. It might be different for you. So for me, I'm going to click on Control, and you can see now they are 2 separate solids. So I've done that. Now I'm going to go up a total of 4 feet, 4 apostrophe, enter. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. There. Then, so 3 things before I would suggest you take a break if you need it. We're going to make the openings here, the roof, and the plank. So let's try to get through that, and then if you need to take a break, I would suggest that's a good time to take a break. So let's start with the openings in the cabin. So let's use the offset tool. There's offset. I'm going to click on this front rectangle, and we'll offset inward 3 inches. 3, enter. Then use push-pull. Click on that rectangular region you just made and push it all the way back. Click on somewhere on the back. Could be this edge. And there, now it goes all the way through. Now we have that opening. We're going to do a similar thing for each of these 2 sides. So we'll use offset again. Offset, we'll offset 4 inches this time. 4, come on, it's not working if you look in the bottom right corner. Come on, 4, there we go, 4, enter. Then push-pull, click the region, and click on the edge that's on the back of that surface. And then one more time on the other side. Offset, click this rectangular face, and we'll offset 4 inches, 4, enter. Click push-pull, click that rectangular region, and then click on the back edge. Good, there's the openings. So 2 more things before we're done with the biggest portion of this whole playhouse. Let's do the roof. So, there's two ways you can go about making this roof. You could, from this view, make a triangle, two-dimensional triangle, and extrude it backward. But you could use that auto fold feature as well. So just for the sake of practicing the auto fold feature, which I think in this case is actually going to come out to be easier, we'll make a line connecting the midpoints, just like that, and click on Move, click on the line, and look at that, I didn't even have to click auto fold, but now I can actually extrude that up, and the surfaces follow along with it. So I'll type in 2 feet for this. We'll make this roof 2 feet tall, 2 feet, enter. There's the roof. Cool. Now let's make the plank. Of course, you can't have a pirate ship without a plank. We'll make a rectangle. Let's click on this end point of the curve, of the fillet. Click there. And I'm going to snap to the opposite edge of this wall. And if you look, take a look at the bottom right corner where it says dimensions. You can see as I move across left and right, the second value, you see 3 inches, that stays the same. But the first value is the one that changes. See that? Now, in general, if you want that, we've done this before. If you want one of the values to change, you don't have to actually, or if you want one of the values to stay what it is there, you don't have to type in that dimension. And I'll demonstrate that here. So I want the first value, the longer length of this rectangle, to be 2 feet. So I'll type in 2 feet, 2 apostrophe, then comma, and 3 inches was fine. That was snapping to the other side. So I could press enter here if I wanted. I can also just type in 3, but you can leave it blank if you want. So 2 feet, comma, enter, and there's the rectangle right there. Now I'll use push-pull, push that rectangle downward as far as you can go. See, it's not letting me go anymore. That happens sometimes in SketchUp. So I'm clicking down, and now these two faces lie along the same plane. I can click this rectangular region again, and you should do that. And we can go down further. We're going to go down 3 more inches, 3, enter. Now this rectangular face facing out toward the outside of the ship, right here, we're going to pull that, extrude that. Again, can't go any farther than this. So I'll click, and then I will click that rectangular region again. Now I can pull it out more. And I will pull that out 3 feet, 3 apostrophe, enter. There, so that is the, that's the bulk of this. This is, you know, that's most of the work right here. The rest of it is putting in materials, the portholes, which we do have to make, but that's very simple. And then inserting these other components. We're not going to make these components. We can insert them from what's called the 3D warehouse. So at this time, if you need a break, now's probably the time to take a break. If you're back from your break, welcome back to part 2. And if you're just chugging along and continuing, let's keep going anyway. So typically, last time I talked about the importance of making components, turning everything you make into a component. That's good for organization of your parts, and it's also good for SketchUp to know the difference between different parts. And it makes the use of tools a lot easier as well. But what I found in this case, with making the portholes, it was easier to make the portholes when this was not itself a component. Now that's going to happen sometimes. I spent a lot of time on this beforehand. I'm just going through right now, and you see me doing this just about flawlessly. But when I was first making this, as with any designer, I came across issues. And the issue I came across was I couldn't make the portholes the way I wanted to when this hull was a component. So when you're designing, you're going to come across issues like that, and you're going to struggle, and you're going to have to take time to figure out those issues. But later we'll make this a component. But for now, we're going to leave it as just a 3D model without it being a component. Anyway, there are 10 total, here's the full model, 10 total portholes in this. And you probably don't want to draw each and every one. And that's one of the reasons we do make components. We're just going to make one, and then we can make a component out of it and then insert it everywhere else. And that's going to be pretty quick. So let's make a circle. Rectangle, there it is, circle. And I'll click somewhere on this face. We're not going for anything precise right now in terms of location, but we will make this circle have a radius of 6 inches. 6, enter. There we go. And then we will offset, use the offset tool, click in the circular region, and offset inward 1 inch, 1, enter. Now we have the outer circle, a ring, an inner circle, and an inner circular region. Let's use the push-pull tool and click on, that's not letting me. I'm gonna try this again. I'll click select, click out. Sometimes that'll happen. Now I'll try this again. Push, pull, click on the ring. There we go. We're gonna extrude that 2 inches to enter. And then click on this circle right here, that inner circular region, and we'll extrude that outward 1 inch, 1, enter. Then we're going to add material to this porthole, and then we'll turn it into a component. So to add material, we click on the paint bucket here. Pan over. Let's look for, of course, this is supposed to be a window, so let's look for window material or glass. There we go, glass and mirrors. And either of these 2 blue ones will work. I think I'm going to go for the lighter one. But that's entirely up to you. And if you move up, just remember, if you're not sure what something is, you can click on it and move to the top, and you can see exactly what the material name is. So this is translucent glass tinted, and it's a lighter blue. So now I'll click on this circle right here, and then I want the outer portion of the porthole to be metal. So I'm going to click on metal, and I think I'll click on this one. This one is, there we go, steel brushed stainless, so I'll use that one, but you can use whatever you want. And I think my computer is getting a little bit slower. There we go, and I'll click on this ring as well. There we go. So there's the entire porthole. Okay, let's turn this into a component now. So I've said in the past, and today as well, that if you click on the select tool and you triple click on your figure, 1, 2, 3, it should select everything. Sometimes SketchUp will infer what it is that you're trying to select. But in this case, because I didn't turn the hull into a component, SketchUp thinks that this entire thing is one separate figure, but that's not our case here. We're seeing this with our human eyes, that this is a hull and this is a porthole, but SketchUp doesn't see that. So how do we select this entire porthole? Well, that comes with dragging, clicking and dragging without letting go to make a selection rectangle. Now there is a difference between starting on the right and moving left and starting on the left and moving right. If you start on the left, then anything in that box, if the entire geometry is in that box, it will be selected, as you can see right here. Now all this is highlighted blue. If I start on the right and move left, then anything, even if the whole geometry is not selected, if a little bit is selected, that will be, or if a little bit is in that rectangle, then the whole thing will be selected. See, now I just let go, and this face right here is now part of the selection, even though I didn't highlight all of it. So I'm going to start on the left, just hover, or just enclose that porthole, and now this is the only thing that's selected. Now that that's selected, right click, click on Make Component, and we'll call it Porthole. So this is what we did before. We just titled it. We don't need a description unless you really want to. What we didn't do before was play with this alignment stuff. So glue to, before it was none. If you want it to attach to certain faces, this is really where, this is really what you have to deal with. If you want a component to only be horizontal to the ground or vertical or sloped, then you click on one of these. But if you want it to be on any surface that you would possibly want to glue to, horizontal, vertical, sloped, then you click on any. And if you want that component to cut a hole into the face that you're gluing to, you can click on Cut Opening. So that component is made. And that's where all the work is, making the component. And now, once it has saved it, we'll be able to insert all of those components, and we won't have to make it 9 more times. So inserting the component, that's over here, these 3 cubes stacked up on top of each other. Click on that. There we go. Make sure you're on the Home tab. You might already be there. There's the person. I don't know why she has to be in here, but anyway, here's the porthole we made. I click it, and there it is. It's come out, and it is gluing onto this face. I'm gonna just try to make it somewhat in line and give it a gap. Then I'll orbit over. I'm gonna insert or insert 3 onto this face over here. Try to make it equally spaced. Now you could go ahead and use different tools to make sure they actually are equally spaced and aligned and in line, but we're not going to deal with that right now. Now, if you look into a window now, there we go, this is a good example. You can see the back corner of this ship, which is bottom back corner. So that did create an opening. I'll do the same thing on the other side of the ship. I got the whole thing right here. Now I don't have to keep panning. That's 1, 2. Look at that, I can actually see the other window or the other porthole through this glass. 3, 4, and come on. There we go, 5. All right, those are all the portholes. Now that those are in, that's when I found that I could actually go ahead and turn this into a component, but before the hull at least. But before that, let's apply material to this ship. Again, my computer's freezing a little bit, but here we go. Paint bucket, and similar to the one that I had made before, let's select a wood to make. You can select any wood that you like. I'm going to go with this first one. And if you hold Control and you click on a face, everything will become wood. But the components, since I made this porthole a component, if I hold Control and click on the face of anything that's not that component's not going to change material, which is another reason to turn things into components. So I'll right-click, click on a face, and everything's wood now. But just like I have in my other model, make it more interesting, let's add maybe some roofing material. Let's click on I'm going to click on this first one. Let's turn this into an actual roof. See, makes it look a little bit more interesting. And I used, went over to colors here, and I made the deck a dark red. But whatever ship you're making, use your own material, of course, however you like it. Now that the hull is all completed, we can triple click 1, 2, 3. There we go, everything's selected except for the portholes. You can see that the portholes are not selected, which is, we don't want them to be selected. We only want the hull to be selected. Again, I cannot emphasize the importance of turning things into components for this reason. But at this point, only the hull is selected. We'll right-click, click on Make Component, call it Hull, H-U-L-L. And we don't need to do any of this glue to stuff. We can just click OK. There. Cool. Now if you click on it, now the whole thing's selected. Much nicer. If you ever need to edit a component, just double click on it. There we go. Now I could make edits, then click out. I'll double click on a porthole. There we go. I can edit that now and then click out of there. Okay, so the last thing to do, that's most of it for our own modeling, so good job there. Now we can add in components. These are our own components, but we can go to what's called the 3D warehouse and search for components in the library of objects that other users have made. So there are 4 objects: slide, steering wheel, stairs, and flag that we'll insert. Now to find these ones, I'll tell you what to type in. Let's start with the slide. Type in school slide, and you'll get this first one is the slide, the same slide that I have. And then it's got to insert. So it might take its time. There we go. Click anywhere because we're going to have to do some rotations now. Let's go over. Here's the move tool. Click on that, and then we get, you'll see the rotate option come up. And so what we'll do is once you do click on rotate, you'll click on a point on the slide, and then we'll rotate it 90 degrees. Finally, there's rotate. We'll click on a point. Any point will do. I'll click on, actually make sure, just for consistency, make sure that it does, yours turns the same way as mine. Let's click on this top middle point here. Then go straight outward this way, so it's so I'm clicking where it says on red axis, and then I'm going to move outward to the right until I hit, I gotta make sure this is 90 degrees. Well, of course you can type in 90, so I'm gonna type in 90 right now. 90, you can see bottom right, I've typed in 90, I'll press enter. So that's rotating, and then moving it, we're going to move it right over to the plank. So I'll click the move tool. That same top middle point, I'll move from there, and then I'm going to click on the bottom midpoint of this plank here. That's the slide. Now, what else do we have? The stairs. So type in school stairs. And here it is, it's the third one. It says SketchUp for schools. It's by SketchUp. And similarly, it's a little bit off screen right now. And also not moving. There we go. I'll just click there, and then I'll use the move tool. It's already selected, and I'll click on the top front midpoint of this, and then the midpoint of this outer wall there at the top. There, now that's connected. The steering wheel, school steering wheel. And it's this first one. And there it is. And the insert point is actually right on the bottom corner, so I can click on the face of the hull. And it's looking a little big, so let's go over where it says move, or it's the move tool, and then this bottom one here is the scale tool. So that's selected, and we can scale it. Click on one of the corner points, and we'll scale it down. No amount in particular, just make it a little bit smaller. And it's not centered anymore, so I'm going to go back to the move tool, click on one of the bottom points on the steering wheel, and then try to make it centered. Again, we're not going for precision right now. I'm going to do it again. Come on. There, something like that. Okay, last thing, once this stops loading, we're going to look up pirate flag. And I used one in my original model. I think I'm going to go for a taller one because that's really short. So typing in pirate flag, and I'm going to go for anyone you want, really. Here, I'll go for this third one. And what is happening? Oh, that is gigantic. So clearly with something like this, if you got something huge, you're going to have to scale it down. So I'm going to click anywhere, and then I'm going to just zoom out like crazy. Wow, that's gigantic. So that's probably to scale, like a real flag and flagpole. Actually, no, that's just gigantic. But anyway, let's scale it down. Let's use the scale tool. Scale it, click on one of the bottom corners, and that's better. Zoom in though. Keep on zooming. There's a limit to how much I can scale, but we can now do it again. I've clicked, and now just keep going. I think that is a bit more appropriate. So now I'll move this. Click on move. Let's make sure we're getting one of the bottom points, like that one right there. I'm going to zoom out. I'm zooming, panning back to the ship. There it is. And I think, oh, whoops, I accidentally right-clicked, but I'm going to leave that there. And I'll click somewhere on the hull. That's a pretty big flag, but I'm not going to go around trying to scale it down again. Because you get the idea. I'm trying to move this maybe a little bit more centered again. I think that's better. Yeah, that's a bit better. So that's it. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but get used to it. Get used to it. You get better at these techniques. You can make more complex stuff. Like, I mean, look at this flag. Like, look at the detail on there. How this person made it, I'm not sure. But with practice, you can get to making something like that, or even this slide here. That's a bit of a different shape than we're used to. But there you go. There is a fun pirate playhouse. So, of course, let's save, though. We will save it in this project. Let's title it Pirate Playhouse _ and your last name. And then you click Save here. Once again, there are timestamps in the description, so you can go back to any point and look at certain things that we did. If you want to go back and look at how to make a fillet, for example, there is a timestamp in the description for that, as with other things. So I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you save, and that's it for today. Thank you for watching.